The Capitals fall to the Panthers in overtime.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Capitals hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about how the Capitals lose a game that was in their grasp. It was in their grasp to win this game, and they lose again. What did we learn? We'll talk about that in the show. A little bit later, we will talk about Nick Backstrom officially being placed on LTIR and what that means for the Capitals. A little bit later, we will talk about the standout evening for Connor McMichael. And can you believe it? Anthony Mantha. We'll talk about that in this show, but just to get it going here, we will talk about how the Caps fall to the Panthers in OT. And this was a game that, the Caps were in it. They were out of it. And ultimately, I thought they had what it takes to win it. But they find a way to lose games. And this game in particular, again tonight, as they fall to the Panthers by a score of 4-3. And, one of the things that is kind of biting them in the butt is overturned goals for the fifth time in 7 games. And Alex Ovechkin said as much. He says, we're going to start working on drills on staying onside and staying away from the goalie. I don't put much into those. We got other things to worry about here, most notably scoring goals. That includes you too, Alex Ovechkin. But one of the things we will say about Alex Ovechkin is, though he was not finding the back of the net in this particular game, or recently, he was getting involved in production and setting up plays, that kind of thing. So even though he's not finding the back of the net, he still is involved and not totally absent from any positivity or being on the score sheet. But they are right. You take a look at the game tonight, another goal that was washed out, Sonny Milano's goal, because of offsides. And I don't know what it is. And, it's one of those things that I think it's systems that they need to work on, because if it's not being offsides, it's about goalie interference. And a lot of the games, in my opinion, would have been won if it wasn't for these stupid washed out goals. And I'm not here to say that the offsides tonight wasn't legitimate. It was. If you looked at the video footage, it was offsides. It's something that needs to get worked on if they are going to continue to win games. Carbery, his thoughts on the loss tonight. I thought the second and third periods were just okay. We made some egregious mistakes with the puck that against a team like them, you just can't make, especially against their best people who are all buzzing around tonight. And, for me watching the game, to a certain extent, it almost felt like, they thought that they had this game in the bag and they could just kind of put it on cruise control for the rest of the evening. As it turns out, that wasn't the case. But taking a look at the people that are getting contributions, again, it was a great evening for Connor McMichael. It was a surprising evening, a great evening for Anthony Mantha, and we'll talk a little bit more about him later. Not so great of a way to end his evening, but Anthony Mantha really showing up on the score sheet. If you told me that you had that in your projection for tonight, I'm going to go ahead and call you a liar. But in any event, great for Anthony Mantha, not so great about how he ended his evening. And again, taking a look at Alex Ovechkin, he has got to find a way to score goals. Ovechkin had several chances. He has 2 goals through 11 games and has scoring an empty netter against the New Jersey Devils on October 25th. So 2 goals through 11 games. In his last goal scored was October 25th against the Devils. That has been quite some time. And despite the fact that, he helped, being involved in the plays and everything tonight, we need Alex Ovechkin to start scoring goals to help the Capitals win games for one, but he's trying to catch Gretzky. Should someone tell him that he's trying to catch Gretzky? I think that ultimately he's thinking about that too much at the end of the day, and that's why he's kind of getting all wrapped up in his mind a little bit too much there. But in any event, that's the keys to success. Also, TJ Oshie has it's been quite some time since he scored a goal as well. Another player, though, that gets involved in other things other than scoring. So it's not like these guys are making zero contributions altogether. But finding the back of the net would be of paramount importance. The power play is struggling. Washington went 0 for 2 against Florida. And, it was one of the things that when they panned over to Spencer.Carbery, you could tell it was one of the things that was just driving him nuts. He was talking under his breath, and he's got to be thinking to a certain extent, do I need to be running the power play here too? I ran the number 2 power play in Toronto. Do I got to take it over here too? I don't know if that's what's going through his head. It feels that way because it seemed like he knows what the right thing to do up in Toronto was, but this team seems to be a bit snake bitten. Carbery said the Capitals made egregious mistakes, mind-boggling mistakes that led to the loss to Florida. And it's one of the things you have to maintain pressure on the gas the entire game. If you let it off even for a moment, especially against a team like Florida or pretty much any team in the NHL, they're going to make you pay. And the Florida Panthers made the Capitals pay. So taking a look at what went wrong. What about the OT goal? The dagger into the game. Carbery, and what went wrong? He said Kuzi out of position. And just a tough thing, all things considered. It's been a rough ride for Kuznetsov, all things considered. You take a look, that he's shown glimpses of greatness this season, but still, being the guy that was responsible in a lot of ways for the Capitals losing the game tonight, he's definitely not helping his resume. What are some of the other things that led to the loss? Were defensive breakdowns something that came back to haunt the Capitals again? It's things that need to be cleaned up if they're going to find a way to win games on a consistent basis. Everyone was riding a high when the Capitals beat the Blue Jackets. Okay, that's a great win. Let's build on that. Let's build on winning. Let's make it multiple games in a row. So they make it to overtime, and Alexander Barkov wins it 15 seconds into overtime. A tough thing for the Capitals, especially playing at home. And if you saw as they panned around Capital One Arena, a lot of empty seats. So people are definitely not vested in this team and them winning on a consistent basis. And, to a certain extent, I don't blame them. Buying a ticket, especially in the lower area there, is quite expensive. And are you going to spend that kind of money on a team that is not winning games on a consistent basis? Not these, a win here and a loss and a win and a loss, win, loss. No, consistent winning. That is what Capitals fans expect, and that's what they want if they're going to shell out their hard-earned money. So that was the difficult thing there. The third line playing big for the Capitals really popped off the page, and that is what was noticeable. So, generally speaking, it's the top line. You see Alex Ovechkin, you see Dylan Strome, you see Tom Wilson. So usually Ovi, Strome, and Wilson are playing pretty well. Strome did not find the back of the net this evening, but if you take a look at it historically, they've had some pretty good production. Surprise, surprise, tonight it was Mantha who had a big game, and it was Connor McMichael who had a big game. But just taking a look at the specifics on the game, shots on net, 28, Capitals 25, Panthers, penalties, Florida 2, Washington 1, penalty minutes 4, Florida, and 2 for the Capitals. So a tough evening for the Capitals. Again, a game that was definitely within their reach, and they find a way to screw it up again. I hate to make it sound like that, but that is ultimately what was the case. Just taking a look in particular, Connor McMichael, again, just popping off the page, and I'll talk about him a little bit later. 6 shots on goal. Tom Wilson, 2. Alex Ovechkin, 2. Anthony Mantha, 2. Evgeny Kuznetsov, 3 shots on goal. And Dylan Strome with 2 shots on goal. And it's not from a lack of contributions from a lot of these different players. The captain, your captain, Alex Ovechkin, with 22:31 of ice time. And despite him being the guy that screwed it up in the end there, Evgeny Kuznetsov, 22:47. So again, we're hoping for bigger and better things from the Capitals as we go forward. Hopefully they can tighten up the defense. Hopefully Alex Ovechkin can turn those shots on goal into finding the back of the net. Same goes for TJ Oshie. And let's hope that as long as Anthony Mantha is not injured, he can keep going with this positivity and scoring and assists and all this kind of thing. Same goes for Connor McMichael. Truly 2 bright spots, I guess I'm going to say, in the game. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will talk about Connor McMichael and Anthony Mantha in particular. Again, if you had them as being big contributors, Anthony Mantha, I'm talking a little bit more about him than I am Connor McMichael. I could see that coming from him, but we'll talk about how they got it done coming up. We spend a lot of time talking together, you and I. We get fired up together on wins and losses, who starts and who sits. I'm thankful for that connection we have. And today, I want to have a chat and be a little bit more personal. Whether you're on extended travel, bracing for a major weather event, or limited by yet another supply shortage, you are covered, my friend. Thanks to our partners at Jace Medical, life-saving antibiotics and a life list of daily medications can be ordered in a 1-year supply. Even ED generics for Cialis, Viagra, and Ravato prescriptions. Go online right now at jacemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medications. Remember to use promo code Locked On at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jace: I am thankful for this service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half to do it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year supply. I also ordered an antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone. If you or someone you love would like to get some peace of mind by having a year's supply of daily meds, go to jacemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use promo code Locked On for $20 off your purchase. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure and subscribe or follow Locked On Capitals wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. I have a lot of great guests lined up, not to mention game breakdowns after every game. So make sure and subscribe or follow Locked On Capitals today. All right, in this next segment here, we are going to talk about how Connor McMichael and Anthony Mantha really showed up on the score sheet. Anthony Mantha, in particular, finding the back of the net to start the game, a game where he shot the puck and it kind of got bounced off a Florida player and found the back of the net. That is when I thought, this is a pretty good sign. The Capitals have got to win this game. Anthony Mantha scored first, but it wasn't meant to be. But all things considered, Anthony Mantha, Connor McMichael, just really killing it out there. I do like the chemistry between the both of them, and I think if they can continue going in that direction, that would be a big thing. Mantha, goal in the first. Mantha gets 2 goals. McMichael is showing why he belongs on the big team with great speed. Starting a 2-on-1 with Mantha gave Washington the lead going into the third. And one thing I'm going to say about Connor McMichael is tremendous speed. Speed like I hadn't really seen in previous seasons before, but the guy can skate and the guy can handle a puck. Forehand, backhand, upper, back of the net, goal, Connor McMichael. I'm drinking the Connor McMichael Kool-Aid. I think you should be as well. Mantha is now tied for Wilson with second in goals on the team with 3. In the third period, Mantha was in front of the net when he got hit in the left side in the face on an Evgeny Kuznetsov shot that deflected off of Mike Riley's stick. That was the bad evening for Anthony Mantha, as it went very well. I would say better than it has gone for him in over a season, maybe 2 seasons. That's how great of a game he had. And it's a tough thing because you could see the confidence on Anthony Mantha's face. You could see a smile that was genuine, like, I found it. I have found my game again. And then to end up getting a hit in the face to end the game, definitely not what the doctor ordered. Carbery did not have an update on Anthony Mantha, who took a deflected shot off the side of his head near his ear late in the game. The big forward had 2 goals in the game. He'll be reevaluated tomorrow, Carbery said. This is from Tarek El-Bashir. So, again, we will have more information on Anthony Mantha just as he's finding his game. He gets injured. And, it's one of the things where you get hit in the head, and it can go a lot of different ways. Either you're good to go in the next game, or sometimes you can miss a substantial amount of time. So a scary thing for Anthony Mantha, but all said and done, one heck of a game for Mantha. And again, I don't think that this endears him and makes it that he has a longer time with the Capitals. I ultimately think it makes it better for him so the Capitals can try to flip him and get a trade and get a better return. The Capitals are still ultimately seeking out their top 6 forward. Just because Anthony Mantha had a great night does not make him that top 6 forward. So good for the Capitals, good for Mantha. The thing that we're hoping for here is that he is not going to miss a substantial amount of time. So taking a look at McMichael, goal and an assist. Capital shorthanded Proda stripped Florida the puck. McMichael turned with speed, was able to sneak behind the defense on a breakaway where he got it past Bobrovsky on a backhand to even the score. McMichael is showing why he belongs on the big team with great speed, starting a 2-on-1 with Mantha, gave Washington the lead in the third. McMichael's 5 points in 11 games put him in tie for 4th in team in scoring. So production in a game of what have you done for me lately? That is what Mantha, that is what Connor McMichael have done. Again, most surprising for me that those were the 2 players that really stood out. Again, not so much for Connor McMichael, but for Anthony Mantha. And I don't want to diminish. I don't want to, poo-poo what he did tonight. He played very well. I would love to see more of that from Anthony Mantha. But again, the above all end all is get his, back of his hockey card, the stats boosted up so it looks a lot better to a potential team so we can make a trade to get that top 6 forward that we've heard about for the longest time. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will talk about Nick Backstrom getting placed on LTIR. It should not really come as a surprise to anyone. What does that mean for the Capitals? I'll talk about that straight ahead. As a business owner, you realize there are times when receivables might fall behind, but that doesn't mean you need to fall behind on vendor payments, payroll, or rent. For more than 25 years, Parkview Advance has helped businesses secure working capital from $5,000 to $1.5 million. Parkview Advance can approve your working capital in as little as 24 hours. So if you're a business owner and you need a little help, you need Parkview Advance. It's a much easier process than you might imagine. We invite the many entrepreneurs that are locked on NHL fans to learn more by calling us at 203 675 0071 or go to parkviewadvance.com. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So in an official move here, the Capitals place Nick Backstrom on LTIR 1 week after he broke the news to his team that he is stepping away from hockey indefinitely. Again, I said this since day one that I do believe that Nick Backstrom played his last game of hockey ever. I think that, he is probably seeing, maybe there's something crazy that can happen. And, maybe at some point, maybe by next season, I'll be good to go. I don't think that he's going to walk away from the money on his contract, of course, nor should he really. I mean, just if you take a look at what he's meant to this team historically, but in any event, he does get placed on, excuse me, LTIR. Backstrom, 35, played in 8 games this season before stepping away. Citing injury concerns, Backstrom has spent much of the past few years battling hip problems. And you did see that. You saw a decline in his game, and it was noticeable. It wasn't the Nick Backstrom of old. Even last year when he came back much earlier than anyone anticipated, it was not the same number 19 on the ice. With the move, Backstrom's $9.2 million salary does not count against the cap, allowing the Capitals to exceed the salary cap. So what is that going to do? That is going to help with the return of Pacioretty and Edmondson, and potentially, if there's a trade and, if they could trade Mantha, that would help in the money aspect of things. So I think that, it was the right thing for Backstrom to do, a very unselfish thing for him to do, to realize, I'm not the player that I once was. And all of a sudden I see this young guy named Connor McMichael cycling in at the center position with me. I think the writing was on the wall. He knew that his time was limited, and either he was going to make the decision or someone was going to make it for him. So he made that tough decision and decided to step away from hockey. But the unselfish aspect of it is that he didn't try to keep playing and playing, even though, he knew that he wasn't playing in top form. And he got, relegated all the way down to the third line center position. And if you think about it, they were paying him a lot of money to play third line center. And the funny thing is this was something I spoke of last summer. What were they going to do with Nick Backstrom? It was kind of a lock that, it was going to be either Kuzi or Strome were going to be number 1 and number 2 at the center position. Dowd, of course, the fourth line center position. So that only leaves one spot available at the center position, third line center. Now, you could have probably made an argument just based on Kuzi that, maybe they could have alternated and potentially Backstrom could have played on the second line center, but he wasn't playing good enough. And you don't want a battle of who's worse to end up playing on your second line center. I think that ultimately they did the right thing. And just based on his performance and, where he was at, third line was even a stretch. So I think, that he, again, saw the writing on the wall. He saw that Connor McMichael, this young guy that, is, the Capitals have had plans for at center for the longest time. Why don't I do the right thing? Why don't I step away now under my terms and let this young guy, Connor McMichael, try to make his mark? There was a Capitals before me. There's going to be a Capitals after me. And it's just about letting life take its course. He knew that this was Connor McMichael's job to have, and hats go off to him for being mature enough to step aside and let Connor McMichael get his opportunity. And if what we saw out on the ice tonight is any indicator of what kind of center Connor McMichael is going to be, then I'm pretty excited about it. And as Capitals fans, I imagine you must be quite excited about it as well, because he really popped off the score sheet. And just that breakaway goal going down the ice, forehand, backhand, upper, back of the net. I was really pumping the fists at home watching it on my laptop, if I must be honest with you, because that's how I do the show. I watch it on my laptop. I take notes on a WordPad. That's what got me excited about it. And we hope to see more of him. And it kind of reminds me of, Nick Backstrom of old. Nick Backstrom, of course, known more for his assists than his goal scoring. It's a tough thing. It's a sad thing for Capitals fans. It's something, if I think about enough, could probably almost be emotional over, just based on what he has meant to this team and what he's meant to Alex Ovechkin, and how, we'll never forget his many contributions that he made to this team. And at some point, someday, number 19, Nick Backstrom, will be hanging from the rafters at Capital One Arena. And that'll be a special moment for Capitals fans. But for right now, that's the way to look at it. I mean, you can be overly optimistic and say that he's going to make a full recovery, even though that has not been the case thus far. I think the more reasonable, realistic expectation is to just give him a tip of the hat and say, good job for your many contributions on this team. All right, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen and view each and every day. Are you a fan of other DC sports? Well, Locked On has got you covered. We have Locked On Nationals, Commanders, Wizards. So no matter what major DC sport it is, Locked On has got you covered. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.